Narrator, VO. In the summer of 1944, the Allied forces were preparing for one of the most crucial campaigns of World War II. But hidden among the thousands of soldiers marching across Europe was a unit unlike any other. They carried no rifles. They fired no bullets. Yet their weapons would prove just as deadly as any gun. Cut to archival footage of inflatable tanks being set up. Narrator, VO. This is the story of the Ghost Army. 1,000 men who used art, sound, and illusion to deceive the Nazi war machine. For decades, their mission remained classified. This is their untold story. Title card: The Ghost Army. Formation of the unit, 3 to 10 o'clock. Cut to map of North Africa, 1942. Narrator, VO. Our story begins not in Europe, but in the deserts of North Africa in 1942. British forces under General Montgomery were facing the legendary German commander, Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. Archival footage: British troops in North Africa. Narrator, VO. The British were outnumbered and outgunned. They needed an edge. Enter Jasper Maskelyne, a stage magician turned military officer, who proposed something radical. What if they could make Rommel see an army that didn't exist? Dramatization: officers examining maps in a tent. Narrator, VO. Using dummy tanks made of plywood and canvas, Maskelyne's team created the illusion of a massive force gathering in the south, while the real British forces assembled in the north. The deception worked. Rommel divided his forces, and Montgomery won a crucial victory at El Alamein. B-roll: victory celebrations, newspaper headlines. Narrator, VO. American military planners took notice. If deception worked in the desert, could it work in Europe? In January 1944, they formed the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. Their mission: classified. Their methods: unprecedented. Recruiting the artists: 10 to 200 hours. Cut to various art schools across America. Narrator, VO. The Army needed a special kind of soldier. They recruited from art schools, advertising agencies, and sound studios. Fashion designers, painters, actors, and sound engineers. Men who could create illusions that would fool German reconnaissance. Photos: individual portraits of real Ghost Army members. Narrator, VO. There was Bill Blass, who would later become a famous fashion designer. Ellsworth Kelly, who would become a renowned abstract painter. And hundreds of others whose creativity would be channeled not into galleries, but into saving lives on the battlefield. Interview footage: veterans speaking, dramatized. Veteran 1: They pulled me out of art school and said, "Son, we need you to paint tanks." I thought they were crazy. Turns out they were brilliant. Narrator, VO. These men were organized into 4 main units. The 603rd Camouflage Engineers would create visual deceptions. The 3132nd Signal Service Company would craft sonic illusions. The 406th Combat Engineers would handle the logistics. And Signal Company Special would maintain radio deceptions. Training footage: soldiers working with equipment. Narrator, VO. They trained at Camp Forest in Tennessee, learning to inflate rubber tanks, set up fake artillery, and broadcast sounds of armies on the move. But nothing could prepare them for what they would face in Europe. Act 2: Deception in Action, 2000 hours, 45:00. Arrival in Europe, 2000 hours, 25:00. Cut to ships crossing the Atlantic. Narrator, VO. In May 1944, just weeks before D-Day, the Ghost Army arrived in England. They were told their missions would be dangerous. If captured, the Geneva Convention might not protect them. Deception was considered dishonorable by some military codes. Dramatization: briefing room. Narrator, VO. Their first major operation would come after the Normandy invasion. As Allied forces pushed inland, the Ghost Army would help them do it. Operation Elephant, 25:00, 35:00. Map animation: Northern France, June 1944. Narrator, VO. Operation Elephant was their baptism by fire. The real 2nd Armored Division was moving south to join the breakout from Normandy. The Ghost Army's job: make the Germans believe the 2nd Armored was still in position, threatening a different sector. Footage: soldiers inflating rubber tanks. Narrator, VO They worked at night, inflating hundreds of rubber tanks, trucks, and artillery pieces. Each inflatable tank took 4 men and 15 minutes to set up. From the air, from a distance of just a few hundred yards, they looked completely real. Aerial reconnaissance photos, showing the fake installations. Narrator, VO But visual deception was only half the battle. The sonic deception unit moved into position. Technical diagrams, sound equipment. Narrator, VO They had developed something called a heater, a massive speaker system that could project sound up to 15 miles. They had recordings of tanks, trucks, and troops on the move, all captured and engineered to perfection. Sound effects, rumbling of tanks, engine noises. Narrator, VO At night, these sounds would echo across the countryside, convincing German listeners that a massive force was on the move. Dramatization, German officers examining reports. German officer, subtitled, Intelligence reports enemy armor concentrations in Sector 7. At least 2 divisions. Narrator, VO The deception worked. German forces remained in position, while the real 2nd Armored Division struck elsewhere. Operation Elephant was a success, but it was just the beginning. The danger of the mission, 35:00, 40:00. Darker tone, combat footage. Narrator, VO These men were artists, but they were also soldiers on the front lines. Setting up their elaborate deceptions meant working dangerously close to enemy positions. Veteran testimony. Veteran 2. We'd be out there at night, pumping up these rubber tanks, and you'd hear German artillery in the distance. You knew if they figured out what we were doing, we were dead men. Narrator, VO During Operation Brest in September 1944, the Ghost Army created a diversion while real forces attacked the heavily fortified French port. They positioned their fake army within range of German guns. Archival photos, damaged equipment. Narrator, VO German artillery fire destroyed several of their inflatables. The men had to maintain the illusion even under fire, repairing and replacing equipment throughout the night. Personal letters, soldiers' handwriting shown. Veteran letter, Dear Mom, I can't tell you where I am or what I'm doing. But I can tell you that art school never prepared me for this. Love, Harold. Operation Viersen, 40:00, 45:00. Map, Rhine River, March 1945. Narrator, VO By March 1945, the Allies were preparing to cross the Rhine River, the last major barrier before entering the heart of Germany. Operation Viersen would be the Ghost Army's most ambitious deception yet. Dramatic music. Narrator, VO The real 9th Army would cross at Wesel. The Ghost Army would make the Germans believe the crossing would happen 30 miles south, at Viersen. Operation footage, massive scale of deception. Narrator, VO For 2 weeks, they created an entire fake army. Over 600 inflatable vehicles. Miles of fake tank tracks created by dragging logs behind jeeps. Radio operators sent thousands of fake messages, using the call signs and patterns of real divisions. Radio chatter, coded military communications. Narrator, VO The sonic units played their recordings at full volume. The sounds of a massive force preparing for assault echoed through the night. German intelligence reports, documents shown. Narrator, VO German intelligence intercepted the radio traffic. Their reconnaissance planes photographed the fake installations. They moved artillery and armor to defend against the crossing at Viersen. Actual crossing footage. Narrator, VO On March 23, the real 9th Army crossed at Wesel, meeting lighter resistance than expected. The Germans had been fooled. The Ghost Army had pulled off their greatest triumph. Act 3, Legacy and Revelation, 45:00, 60:00. The End of the War, 45:00, 50:00. Footage, V-Day celebrations. Narrator, VO In May 1945, the war in Europe ended. The Ghost Army had conducted over 20 major tactical deceptions. They had impersonated more than a dozen different divisions. Intelligence estimates suggest their operations saved between 15,000 and 30,000 American lives. Portraits, Ghost Army members. Narrator, VO, but there would be no medals, no public recognition. Every man was required to sign a secrecy oath. They returned home, and the Ghost Army vanished from history. The long silence, 50:00, 53:00. Photos, post-war America. Narrator, VO, for nearly 4 decades, these men carried their secret. Bill Blass built his fashion empire. Ellsworth Kelly became one of America's most celebrated artists. Others became teachers, businessmen, fathers, and grandfathers. Veteran interviews. Veteran 3. My own children didn't know what I did during the war. I wanted to tell them so many times. But we had sworn an oath. Narrator, VO. It wasn't until 1985 that portions of the Ghost Army's history were declassified. Even then, many documents remained sealed. Recognition at last, 53:00, 57:00. Recent footage, veterans reunions, 1990s to 2000s. Narrator, VO. In 1996, the surviving members of the Ghost Army held their first reunion. Men who had been sworn to silence for half a century could finally share their stories. Veteran gathering, elderly men examining old photographs. Veteran 4. We thought history had forgotten us. But we never forgot each other or what we did. Narrator, VO. Documentaries were made. Books were written. In 2013, their story was featured in a PBS documentary. Museums began displaying their equipment and artwork. Footage, Congressional Ceremony, 2022. Narrator, VO. In 2022, 77 years after the end of World War II, Congress finally awarded the Ghost Army the Congressional Gold Medal, one of America's highest civilian honors. Survivors at ceremony, elderly veterans receiving recognition. Narrator, VO. Only a handful of Ghost Army veterans were still alive to receive it. But they received it for all of them. Closing, 57:00, 60:00. Montage, original artwork created by Ghost Army members during and after the war. Narrator, VO. The Ghost Army proved that warfare isn't just about firepower and numbers. Sometimes, the greatest weapon is the human imagination. Interviews, modern military strategists. Military historian, what the Ghost Army accomplished laid the groundwork for modern military deception doctrine. Their techniques are still studied and adapted today. Final images, Ghost Army patches, memorials, artworks. Narrator, VO. These artists who became soldiers, these soldiers who remained artists, showed that creativity and courage are not opposites. They painted with tanks instead of brushes. They composed symphonies of deception. And they helped win a war. Veteran final words. Veteran 5, elderly, speaking to camera. People ask me, were you scared? Of course we were scared. But we had a job to do. We were artists, but we were also Americans. And we did our part. Fade to black. Narrator, VO. The Ghost Army. 1,000 men who deceived an enemy, saved countless lives, and remained silent for decades. Their story reminds us that in the darkest times, creativity and innovation can be as powerful as any weapon. Final title card. Text on screen. Between June 1944 and March 1945, the Ghost Army conducted 21 battlefield deceptions. They are credited with saving an estimated 15,000 to 30,000 Allied lives. Their story remained classified for 40 years. In 2022, they received the Congressional Gold Medal. This is their legacy.